Hello everyone. Today we're going to be doing something very different. Today I want to showcase my Kirby deck. The Kirby deck I made on Dueling book. This Kirby deck I am kind of proud of. This is the first archetype I ever made. I actually did make archetypes in the past, but I wouldn't exactly call them good. Anyway. I just wanted to showcase the stuff I did. I really love Kirby and I really love Yu-Gi-Oh! So why not put them together? That's what my logic was, so that is what I'm doing. And also, so anyway, this will mostly showcase what the deck is, what the deck does, and so it'll show off some combos that this deck can do. So, the first thing you want to do with this deck is to get Kirby on the field. What this deck hopes to accomplish is to use your opponent's monsters against them, to use your opponent's monsters as fusion materials to get your powerful Kirby monsters and go for game. Now, these are the Kirby extra deck monsters. We'll get to them later, but the idea is that Kirby sucks up those monsters that your opponent has and gets an ability, depending on what type, attribute, and stuff they have. For example, Beam Kirby needs a Spellcaster type monster, Ice Kirby needs a Water type monster, Spark Kirby needs a Thunder or Machine type monster, Sword Kirby needs a Warrior type monster, and that's kind of what you need. And Ultra Sword Kirby needs a rank 6 or higher XYZ Warrior type monster. These are very specific, but there are going to be ways to make your opponent's monster any type and attribute you want to set up any kind of board you want. So that will be pretty nifty. So first off, let's talk about the individual cards. So what I'm going to do is normal summon Star Ally Kirby. And what Star Ally Kirby does is when he is normal summoned straight on the field, I can add a Kirby Super Inhale from my deck to my hand. We'll get to this card a little bit later. Really powerful card, by the way. And I'm just going to activate Pot of Desires, because why not? To get a little bit of card advantage. Let's see what I lost here. And nothing too bad. I didn't lose any one of, so that's fine. I did lose a few things that I didn't want to lose. I did lose Kirby Ice Essence. That's pretty sad, but yeah, that was a one of actually. I did lose a one of. But I put multiple copies of every card in here for a reason. So I don't lose everything from Product Desires. Anyways, once you have Kirby Star Ally on the field, you can activate Kirby Super Inhale. What Kirby Super Inhale does is I target one monster on my opponent's on either side of the field, and I can fusion summon a Kirby monster using my Kirby monster and the selected card as fusion materials. So it's kind of like Super Polymerization, a Kirby version of Super Polymerization. It's like Kirby is sucking them up and gaining their abilities. So let's say my opponent has a Warrior type monster. I can use Kirby Super Inhale and Special Summon Sword Kirby, while also removing the card on their side of the field. It's a nice way of removal, and it's also a nice way to get your powerful Kirby monsters on the board. Now, Star Ally Kirby in particular, every Star Ally Kirby, Adventure Kirby, and regular everyday vanilla Kirby, these two are always treated as Kirby while on the field or in the graveyard. This is just Kirby, so you don't have to worry about that. Kirby Super Inhale, along with all the Kirby fusion monsters, only work with Kirby. So yeah, Kirby and one warrior monster. So you can use Star Ally Kirby, Adventure Kirby, or just regular old Kirby for these kinds of fusions. And each of these Kirbys has their own effects that benefit you in unique ways. Except for this one, its effect is pretty basic. but that's kind of the point, which I will get to a little later. So, I'm going to shuffle this back into the deck, because I'm going to summon him soon. So, I'm just going to put this in the back of my hand, and put this back in the graveyard. So yeah, let's just say my opponent had a warrior-type monster, and I used Kirby Super Inhale to fuse my Star Ally Kirby with the monster they had on the field to make my Sword Kirby. And I have, thanks to Pot of Desires, I drew Kirby Dreamland, so let's activate that. Kirby Dreamland is one of the key cards of this deck, incredibly powerful. When it's activated, I can add any Kirby monster from my Kirby card from my deck to my hand. I'll choose Kirby Meta Knight. This effect can only be activated once per turn, so you can't chain it. You can't get infinite Kirby cards because that would be insane. It also has a bunch of different effects, but I will showcase that a little later. So now that I got Kirby Meta Knight, I will use this in my combo. So I can discard Kirby Super Inhale and Adventure Kirby to the graveyard to special summon him through his effect. And both of these cards have floating effects. Kirby Meta Knight special summons himself if you discard 2 Kirby cards. And what's nice about this is that a lot of Kirby cards have floating effects. Both Adventure Kirby and Kirby Super Inhale have floating effects. So Kirby Super Inhale allows me to special summon regular, good old everyday Kirby from my deck straight to the field. That's the purpose of this card mostly. He also works in tandem with Bandana D, which gives you regular Kirby from your deck to your hand. Regular Kirby's effect is not that useful, but that's kind of the point. If it was really powerful, then Kirby Super Inhale's floating effect, I feel, would be a little too strong. So I made regular Kirby just not as good, but can still be used for your combos. Also, regular Kirby allows you... regular Kirby, basically what he does is when he destroys a monster, he can equip that monster to him, and you can use that to special summon your Kirby monsters. So, let's say he destroyed a warrior-type monster by battle. On my main phase 2, I can send it to the graveyard to special summon Sword Kirby. And that's what all these Kirby Fusion monsters can do. It's kind of like he's inhaling them. And while I'm at it, I guess I can explain what Adventure Kirby does. Although before that, I am going to add a Kirby Spell or Trap card, because I can, due to the effect of Adventure Kirby. Actually, just a Kirby Spell card. So I will add Kirby Mix. So, with Adventure Kirby, what he does, he's actually a pretty special card. And works very much in tandem with Kirby Dreamland. He can fuse with any monster on the field, contact fuse, including your opponent's monsters, that have less attack than it. But you can only select one. So let's say my opponent has like a 500 attack Thunder monster, I can fuse Adventure Kirby with it to make Spark Kirby. So it's a nice form of removal. However, he only has 900 attack, so you can't just use this effect willy-nilly. He works in tandem with Kirby Dreamland, which once per turn, I can change the type and attribute of a monster on my opponent's side of the field and make its attack 0 to the end phase. Not only does this allow me to use any Kirby monster I want from my extra deck to set up any kind of board I want, but also allows Adventure Kirby to contact fuse without the need of Kirby Super Inhale and without the need to attack with this kind of Kirby on the battle phase. So Adventure Kirby is a really nice card to have. But right now I don't have him. However, what I do have is Kirby Waddle Dee. If Kirby is on the field, he will special summon himself. And while he's on the field, I can normal summon one Kirby monster in addition to my regular normal summoner set, but I can only gain this effect once per turn. I can also change control of this card once per turn to give it to my opponent, just in case my opponent just doesn't have any monsters, so I can use it with Adventure Kirby to special summon a Kirby monster. Just kind of cool things you can do with this deck. Just some cool combos. So, and Kirby Waddle Dee also has the distinction of being a tuner. So I can Synchro Summon with him to make Kirby marks. But I'm not going to do that yet. First, I'm going to activate Kirby Mix. Now, this is a very interesting card. What it does is it makes... I get 3 Kirby monsters with different names in my extra deck, and I choose one at random, and it gets special summoned, ignoring its summoning conditions. It's very powerful, especially if you get Ultra Sword Kirby, which again I'll explain later. But it is a little luck dependent. Sometimes you might not get the kind of Kirby you want, but regardless of what you get, it is a beneficial effect. So let's say with Kirby Mix, I got Ice Kirby. And Ice Kirby is also a pretty nice card, because once per turn, I can negate the effect of a card on the field. And if it's a monster, it can't attack this turn. So it's a nice form of negation. You usually, if you're going first, want to get as many Ice Kirbys on the field as possible to negate the stuff that your opponent has on the field to set up for next turn. So right now, I have Sword Kirby, Ice Kirby, and Kirby Meta Knight on my field. What I can also do is I can Synchro Summon with Kirby Meta Knight, with Kirby Waddle Dee, to special summon Kirby Marks. Kirby Marks takes a tuner and one or more non-tuner Kirby monsters. So, this card is also pretty special, because he allows you to change the type and attribute of a monster on your opponent's side of the field on either player's turn, and then fuse a Kirby with one monster on your opponent's side of the field. So he's kind of like a super polymerization on legs. However, you can only use this effect once per turn, and if you use this effect, you cannot special summon any other Kirby monsters from your extra deck except Kirby monsters. The same restriction applies to Star Ally Kirby. It's so that you can't use the Kirby deck as generic support for other archetypes and make them really overpowered. I wanted to balance this deck as much as I could for these purposes. So yeah, I have Kirby Marks and Ice Kirby on the field. And because I can normal summon again, thanks to Kirby Waddle Dee, I can normal summon Star Ally Kirby. So that next turn, I can use my opponent's monsters to special summon with Star Ally Kirby. And I have a negate with Ice Kirby. So this is a pretty good board for next turn if I'm going first. I wouldn't say it's a great board. My opponent can stop me in my tracks and stuff, but I'm not trying to make an ultra competitive deck here. I just made this deck for fun mostly. But there are some more extended combos I can do here, if I don't just want to end it off there. Because almost every single Kirby card like this can banish itself, and I have to discard a Kirby card. Again, this also works with all the floating effects. So you usually want to get those kinds of cards and use them with your combos to get a Kirby spell or trap card from my deck to my hand. I can get Kirby Dreamland if I didn't have Kirby Dreamland already, or if I wanted to use its effect again. Or I could get Kirby Bandana Waddle Dee. And what's special about him he is the main hand trap of this deck. So now I have three actions I can do on my opponent's turn. with Kirby Bandana Waddle Dee, actually just 2 because I can't use Kirby Mux's effect, but that's neither here nor there. With Kirby Bandana Waddle Dee, if a Kirby fusion monster or Kirby monster would be destroyed by battle or by card effect, I can special summon him from my hand and negate that effect. And that works with any kind of card that destroys a Kirby monster. So let's say they just activate something that destroys my entire board. I can negate it with Kirby Bandana Waddle Dee and special summon him. But let's say you're not all about that. Let's say you want a trap, a regular trap. Well, this deck has one trap. Kirby Boss Battle. If I can get in my hand. Thank you, Dueling Book. Alright, so what Kirby Boss Battle does, I can set it face down, and on my opponent's turn, I can special summon a Kirby Meta Knight or Kirby Bandana Kirby Meta Knight or Kirby King Dedede from my deck straight to my opponent's side field. And it is forced to attack a Kirby or Kirby fusion monster on my side of the field. If it wins against the Kirby monster, the battle phase ends. But if it doesn't, actually it's the other way around. If Meta Knight or King Dedede loses the battle, it gets sent back to the battle phase will end just right there. But if they manage to win, or if nothing happens, then Kirby will befriend them, just like he does in all the games, and you get that monster on your side of the field now. Either way, the battle phase will end. So it's kind of like negate attack with extra steps. It's a pretty nice way to stop your opponent, but you usually don't want to use this card for its trap effect because it has a really nice floating effect. Now, I didn't get to showcase the floating effects that much because of the current hand I had. I only got to showcase Kirby Mix's floating effect. Kirby Mix's banish effect, I mean. So, let's reset this deck and see what kind of other hand I can get to showcase more of the floating effects that I can use with this deck to extend my combos. So first, I'm going to activate Pot of Desires. Oh, I got Terraforming, that's nice. Oh, I lost Kirby King Dedede, that sucks. Well, that's the risk you take for using Pot of Desires. It's sad, and I lost regular Kirby. Yeah, this is what happens when you use Pot of Desires. Bad things can happen, but that's just the risk you gotta take sometimes. So, I'm gonna use Terraforming to get Kirby Dreamland. Activate Kirby Dreamland to get Star Ally Kirby. Typical stuff. I'll normal summon Star Ally Kirby to get Kirby Super Inhale. And I can use, and of course, I'll use, let's see, which one do I want to use? I'll use Kirby Sword Essence. What these Essence cards do, other than Kirby Mix, is they will allow me to special summon the specific Kirby card from my extra deck. So, with Kirby Sword Essence, I can use it with Star Ally Kirby, who is treated as Kirby while it's in the field or the graveyard, by the way, to summon Sword Kirby. And so, with that out of the way, one Sword Essence can banish itself, and I discard one card. I'll discard this to add a Kirby monster from my deck to my hand. So I will add Kirby Bandana Dee. Oh, and I forgot. Kirby Waddle Dee special summons himself. I gotta remember that. And almost all of these cards, a lot of Kirby cards have floating effects just to keep up the momentum and keep up your combos. Kirby Boss Battle also has an effect that banishes itself, so I banish it, discard another Kirby card. So I will discard, let's see, yeah. Discard Kirby Bandana Waddle Dee, which also has a floating effect that allows me to add a Kirby monster from my deck to my hand. You see the combos rolling in. And I get to special summon a Kirby monster from my deck straight to the field. Kirby Meta Knight. If it'll happen. So Kirby Boss Battle's floating effect is very powerful. You can only use it once per turn. That's the thing with all these floating effects. All these banished floating effects, all once per turn. It's just so that you can't infinite combo with everything. Once you use all the floating effects you have, that's it. So you have to plan around that. You have to use your floating effects optimally so that you don't screw things up. And thanks to Kirby Waddle Dee, I can normal summon once again. So I can normal summon Star Ally Kirby. Now, we don't get its effect again because it's a hard once per turn, so I can't get another Kirby Super Inhale. But what I can do is use Kirby Mix to get, let's say, this time I got Beam Kirby. With Beam Kirby, I guess I'll explain what all the Kirbys do right now. So, what Beam Kirby does is sets up for your OTK. You can discard you banish one card in your hand to make your opponent discard one card randomly, or destroy a spell trap card on the field and banish it. So let's say I want to do that. I banish this card in my hand, and I randomly discard a card in their hand. Just for some protection so that your OTK is not halted. Just set up for your game-ending attack. Sword Kirby can attack as many monsters, can attack as many times as there are monsters on your opponent's side of the field, and he gains 500 attack every time he destroys a monster until the end of the battle phase. So he's kind of like a Lunalite monster in that sense. I did kind of base this deck on Lunalites with all these banishing effects and Sword Kirby. If you could tell that. I really like Lunalites, so I just felt why not. And Spark Kirby is your big OTK card. If you can discard a card in your hand, and all Kirby monsters on your field gain 500 attack for every Kirby monster on the field. So yeah, let's just say, instead of Beam Kirby, I got Spark Kirby. So 5, 10, 15, 20. All my Kirby monsters will gain 2,000 attack. So this will be a definite OTK. Kirby Meta Knight can also attack twice during the battle phase. Really nifty, really strong. So there is one other thing that Kirby Meta Knight can do, and that is up to twice per turn, I can destroy a card on my opponent's side of the field when a Kirby Fusion monster is summoned. So that just destroys more stuff on your opponent's side of the field to set up for next turn. And it's only up to twice per turn. It's a hard twice per turn. I know that's kind of weird, but I did feel like it would be a little underpowered if you can only do it once per turn. So since I special summoned 2 Kirby Fusion monsters, I would have destroyed two cards on my opponent's side of the field. Like this deck, as you can see, likes going second because it wants monsters on my opponent's side of the field to use. It likes destroying cards. This deck can be very vulnerable to lockdown because it needs all these floating effects. It needs these spell cards. It needs all these effects to get its combos going. And if I'm locked out of spell cards, if I'm locked out of my graveyard, it can really stop my combos. So that is the main disadvantage of this deck. If I get locked down, things will be pretty bad. And lockdown is pretty common in Yu-Gi-Oh!, especially nowadays. So if I'm not expecting this deck to be really amazingly competitive. I just did all this kind of stuff for fun. But if you're not going up against lockdown, you can get some really powerful combos, break your opponent's boards pretty easily, and go in for some OTKs. So, with that settled, there are a few other cards that I need to showcase. Let's see. I already showed off Kirby Bandanity. I already showed off Kirby Mix. Kirby Ice Essence, also, if you banish it, you get a Kirby Spell Trap card for every deck to your hand. Oh yeah. There is one powerful monster that you can summon. The ultimate Kirby monster, Void Termina. Now, I actually wouldn't be able to summon him this turn, because he's not a Kirby monster, and Star Ally Kirby locks you into special summoning Kirby monsters. So I wouldn't actually be able to do this, but I'm just showing him off for now. So you can special summon, you can XYZ summon this card with just 3 level 10 monsters, or by using 3 level 6 or higher Kirby monsters with different names. So, theoretically, if I didn't use Star Ally Kirby, I could summon Void Termina, who is an incredibly powerful card. He cannot be destroyed. Once per turn, I can negate. He has an Omni Negate, so I can negate anything my opponent has by detaching a card. And if I want to go for an OTK, I can detach all 3 of these cards that I have to suck up as many monsters on my opponent's side of the field as possible and equip them to him, and he gains the combined attack of all of those monsters. So that's basically a pretty definitive OTK and wipes your opponent's board. Pretty powerful, very strong. And if your opponent manages to take him out, you can special summon a Kirby monster from your deck. So let's say they bounce him to the extra deck. I can special summon a Kirby monster from my deck for next turn. And for defense. And of course, Kirby Dreamland gives me some extra protection. Kirby monsters cannot be destroyed by battle as long as Kirby Dreamland's on the field. So that is very nice. It's kind of like Toon Kingdom. But of course, this card itself doesn't have any protection, so easily poppable, easily destroyed. And none of these cards really have any way to protect it, except maybe Kirby Bandanity. But I wanted to keep things a little balanced, just so that, you know, I don't have an invincible board. You do want to get as good of a board as you can possibly get first turn. If you're going first, usually what you want to do is you want to get Ice Kirby, Void Termina to negate stuff, all that jazz. But by the way, while I couldn't actually summon Void Termina, there is one card I could summon, because I have Kirby Super Inhale in my hand. Kirby Super Inhale allows me to fuse these cards together. Remember, I can use Kirby Super Inhale on monsters on my side of the field as well, to summon Ultra Sword Kirby, the other big boss monster of this deck. So, what Ultra Sword Kirby does is, in the battle phase, I can destroy all monsters my opponent controls. It's a Raigeki. So, like, he's getting that gigantic sword and completely fucking up all of the opponent's monsters. And they're truly fucked up, because once they're destroyed, their effects in the graveyard cannot activate. So that is a clean wipe for your epic OTK with your Kirby monsters. So yeah, they destroy all monsters their opponent controls, and all monster effects that activate in your opponent's graveyard are negated. And also, you negate all effects your opponent controls currently on the field. Incredibly powerful card. And when it's removed from the field, I can special summon a Kirby monster from my graveyard. Well, a Kirby fusion monster, actually. So if it's removed, if it's taken out, I get Sword Kirby back. And of course, if Kirby loses his ability, like getting destroyed, you can special summon a Kirby from your graveyard. It's kind of like him losing an ability when he gets destroyed. So it's kind of in theme with this Kirby archetype. So yeah, Ultra Sword Kirby, Void Termina, incredibly powerful boss monsters. So you want to get these guys out as much as you possibly can. It can be difficult to get Ultra Sword Kirby out because you need a rank 6 or higher XYZ warrior type monster on your opponent's side of the field, or Meta Knight, and the only way you're going to fuse with Meta Knight is if you have Kirby Super Inhale. So he can be a little hard to get out, but once you get him out, really strong, really powerful, just wipes boards clean. And of course, but you can only use this effect on the battle phase. So if your opponent wants to disrupt it, they can pretty easily. Like if they have a hand trap or something, or they can use one of their monster effects to negate Ultra Sword Kirby's effect before he can use his big sword to fuck everything up. So there is counterplay. It's not like the most broken thing ever, but I did want to make this card incredibly strong. So, I think that is mostly it. There's also Kirby Bandana D. If he is on the field, all of my Kirby monsters gain 500 attack. So that is just a little bit of an extra boost to set up for OTKs. Spark Kirby also discarding for the extra 500 attack. More setup for very powerful OTKs. So that is mostly it for the Kirby Deck Showcase. There are a bunch of combos you can do with this deck. There is a lot of strategies that I have implemented, and I bet that many other people can implement their own strategies with other cards to get some really powerful Kirby OTKs up in here. So I hope you guys enjoyed this Kirby Deck Showcase. I really liked making this deck. It was really fun. I really love Kirby. I really love Yu-Gi-Oh! So why not to combine them together is what I thought. Well, anyway, I hope all you guys enjoyed watching this, and I will see you next time.